When in legal Judaism can you abort a fetus? And the answer is Judaism refuses false clarity. When human lives are at stake, it's messy, it's not obvious, it's not clear, it's very unsettling. We do not say all abortion is murder, and we do not say that abortion is a personal private choice. Neither one. If you take one or the other of those positions, it does offer some emotional relief if you position yourself on one of those premises. But both of those premises find a way to avoid the harder work involved of making a moral distinction. An embryo is not a born human being, yet a fetus is not morally meaningless either. And the mother is a full moral subject. Again, modern culture demands a single sentence. When does life begin? But Judaism here is a different question. That is, at what point am I responsible? Judaism never grants us the relief so that we feel good about that question. Some people assume that if a faith tradition doesn't treat the fetus as a born person in every legal sense, then the fetus must be treated as disposable. Judaism rejects that logic completely. We don't need an all or nothing frame to treat something as sacred. So what do we do with the hard cases? What do we do with rape? What do we do with incest? What do we do with severe fetal abnormalities? What do we do when the mother's life is threatened? Those are big ones. Or what do we do with a family that has too much pressure on it, already has too many kids and limited financial resources? What about an expectant mother who's facing trauma? Not theoretical trauma, but real, honest to goodness trauma. But we don't respond to these things with slogans. Judaism responds with grief, with law, and with moral seriousness. We don't sanctify suffering, but we also don't erase the moral gravity of ending a potential life simply because the circumstances are so horrific. And this is where modern culture kind of freaks out. Again, modern culture says either it's murder, that way the moral world stays very simple, or it's always a choice. We see that. I mean, we live through these times. We see both of these extremes. By the way, if you ask a Jewish lover, when does life begin? They'll all tell you the same thing. After he graduates medical school. One thing we know about abortion is that it's not meant to be used as birth control. Beyond that, there's tons of nuance. When in legal Judaism can you abort a fetus? And the answer is only in cases of pikuach nefesh, only in cases where the mother's life is in danger. So then the next logical question is, how do you define a woman's life in danger? Before I answer that, I'm going to say, the way I describe actual Jewish life to you, most of the men and women who are affected with these kinds of issues will probably end up being more stringent and more religious than the rabbis that they're seeking advice from. So the rabbis are most likely not going to be imposing, not that imposing law is something that's achievable today, but most of the rabbis are not going to be prescribing doing things in a harsher way than the couple themselves already feels about the situation. So what do you do about it? What do you do about incest?
What about the child's life? Children suffer so much, and Catholicism says no abortions. People aren't stepping up to adopt these suffering children that grow up into adults that are just so broken and damaged.
Our perspective is, and it comes down to interpreting what does it mean that a woman's life is in danger. You know what it means literally, that if you don't abort the child immediately, the mother's going to die on the operating table. But beyond that, what's going to happen to the marriage if a woman, God forbid, was raped? What does that do to the marriage in terms of how the husband relates to his wife and the other children in the family? You could make the case, potentially, that that embryo should be aborted, or not make that case. It's case by case with every rabbi and with every couple. What happens in the case of incest? What happens in the case where the woman is already finished, mixed up, because she's got 12 kids running around, the husband is barely eking out of it, she can't take it anymore. They're living in a 2-bedroom apartment, 3 kids are sleeping under the kitchen table, 3 under the dining room table. Yeah, this is real. What I'm saying is real. This is real life. And she said, I can't take it anymore, I'm going crazy, I'm leaving. Is that saving the mother's life by saying, okay, you don't have to have a child? Hopefully these conversations are taking place in the first trimester or sooner. no later than the end of the first trimester. Because after that, there are huge legal obstacles, Jewish legal obstacles to overcome that usually cannot be overcome. So it's not an all or nothing in Judaism. Judaism is not asking the woman in crisis to become a symbol for Judaism. Judaism is not denying the trauma. Judaism is saying, don't let the trauma become a moral authority.
Does Judaism have any opinion as to adoption?
It's all part of the equation in terms of what do we do with the situation. Mother, are you capable of having this child and placing it in adoption? There are long lines of people waiting to adopt. I don't need to tell you that. Just saying that trauma deserves compassion, but trauma does not get to automatically decide what's permissible. That's not cruelty in Judaism. That's moral adulthood in Judaism.